Welcome back to the Hill of Roses, where we come once again to celebrate the best contributors to our independent policy movement for progress to bring power to the people. With us today on the program, we're going to get to talk to Sreenath Jagannathan. He is a doctor who had graduated from medical school in Lake Erie College of Osteopathy Medicine, and he is an individual with Asperger's syndrome, which I bring up because today's conversation is around neurodiversity as well as mental health. And I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation today with Sreenath because this is a subject so personal to myself as someone who has dealt with Asperger's syndrome as well as I've had my own challenges with mental health. And I think this is especially super important when it comes to our crises that we've been talking around the nation, whether it comes to policing, as this is an issue where people who are neuroatypical often have challenges in being able to interact with the police appropriately because they don't pick up on certain social cues. And mental health is so important right now as we've seen a lot of isolation due to the COVID crisis. But on top of that, we've seen studies come out where 10% of all Americans are currently having suicidal thoughts. And so I found this to be a very heartfelt and personal conversation to get to have with Sreenath. And I know all of you out there are going to be able to enjoy it as well. Okay, we're here with Sreenath Jagannathan. Sreenath, welcome to the program. It's so pleasurable to be able to have you on and be able to talk about what I feel is a super important topic that's near and dear to my heart. So, welcome so much to the Hill of Roses.
It's a great honor, and it's always exciting when you get to talk with someone real life.
Yeah, I think that's certainly pertinent now during these COVID times. It's a great way to be able to get together. Is frankly, everyone's now popping up with their own podcast, but I'm glad to be able to have you on today, Sreenath, to talk about neurodiversity, being able to talk about disabilities, and we have to, I think, frankly, talk about our own personal experience with this, as I think you have a very impressive story to tell yourself. Being a similar neurodiverse individual who is a medical doctor yourself. I wanted to ask you about that first and foremost. Was that a expectation that you had growing up? Did you always want to be a doctor? Did you always believe you could get there? I know it's a very rigorous path, having done some of that kind of pre-med path myself going towards medical school. I ended up not doing that, but I know how difficult it can be. Did you always see yourself becoming a doctor?
Oh, yes, since I was a little child, I knew I could believe in myself regarding hard work and structure and discipline from my music studies and just loving science in general. I was seen as like a little expert on the weather, being on the morning announcements, and everybody essentially saw me as a real person in those areas. And I believe that there's nothing you can't do. And I put in all the hard work. I got accepted to medical school, even though the MCAT was difficult. I had to take it twice. But I did all the hard work to get into medical school, and my hard work ethic got me far in medical school and got me to this point. Even though I saw my diagnosis of Asperger's, autism, as challenging, and it was so relieving that I understood a lot of pain that I started to no longer feel, because a lot of us Aspies and people with autism can relate. Why are we being judged as social punishments when there's no um, formal curriculum that uh, we were intentionally trying to violate? And we just don't think in the hidden curriculum ways neurotypicals do. But I didn't know that about myself. And although nothing can replace the pain that I suffered from being misunderstood, I always had hard work going for me. And, I didn't need a lot of, people who didn't understand me. I found a meaning in hard work, and I let that define me instead of, the system, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that's so important sometimes. It's like I think a little adversity is actually what makes us stronger and frankly more capable. A lot of the times when you have to overcome adversity, you teach yourself tricks that others don't know. And I think I've had that own experience myself. I'm also someone who has been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. And so I'd love to ask you, in your experience, how has that impacted your life, and when did you find out you were diagnosed? Because I think for a lot of people, they don't truly understand what the differences are when it comes to Asperger's itself. Could you give people more insight into what you have felt impacted by, other than the social ridicule as you just described?
Well, my pediatrician missed my diagnosis,
Mm.
and I got diagnosed after being accepted to first year medical school. And it shell shocked a lot of people in medical school, wondering how did people not see you as autistic or um, suffering socially or sensory speaking. A pediatrician doesn't know. So it wasn't my fault nor my family's fault that it was missed or I was misunderstood. My childhood school systems didn't pick up on it, but it just didn't matter. I got accepted to medical school, and my medical school did everything possible to be fair in what I could understand, couldn't understand, and tried to see me as a real person as opposed to just a diagnosis or a statistic.
So Serena, I'd love to ask you, because your experience is a little bit different than mine. I was found to be on the Asperger's and autism spectrum when I was, very young. My pediatrician found out. What was that process like for you later in life? How were you diagnosed? How did they know when you went to medical school that you were someone with Asperger's?
Well, this is where it gets exciting. After I got accepted to medical school and I was moving to um, my apartment with a couple medical student peers, um, one of them during um, like a get together hangout, we were at a Thai restaurant and I ordered my order, they ordered theirs, and when a soup came out, and I had a sensory sensitivity, so to speak, it just smelled really bad.
Mm.
And I just openly, bluntly asked, "Why does the soup stink like feces?" And my roommate peers replied, "Shree, I don't know if you're aware, but some of the things you say might come off rude to other people, just so you know." And that was one of the hallmark. It just led to more and more mind blindness um interaction, so to speak. And um they couldn't understand why my pediatrician could miss something. And they became worried about me as medical school became harder, and a lot of my past hurts from being misunderstood in high school as a threat to society and other, misunderstandings. Um, I started seeking a therapist specialist, and over the course of his sessions, he told me to look up autism, and I Googled, and it explained every part of me that made me so different. And I wasn't making a choice to suffer or want to suffer in any way. I I didn't know what mind blindness was. I didn't know what you know, social cues were, just because I had no education or diagnosis until after medical school.
Mm. So I'd love to ask, what do you feel like was the biggest misconception that you had, as well as you think others have had, like that don't face this? Because obviously, I think there was maybe a misconception. I don't know if you had heard before college what just autism was in general. Did you know the term beforehand, before college, just autism in general?
I knew what autism was, but only in like a stereotypical, severely disabled context.
Mm,
I was much mild compared to a lot of people.
yeah, that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
I could drive really well. I had perfect pitch in my choirs. I was smart and just a good rule following person. I follow rules. I just didn't understand hidden rules.
Yeah, no, I feel you a lot on that front. And for those people that don't understand, autism is labeled as a spectrum disorder. In my own personal experience, I've done medical research for several years on another form of disorder on the autism spectrum scale, which is Rett syndrome. And so Rett syndrome is your most severe scale, and Asperger's, what we're talking today, is on your more benign scale. It's, the most high functioning capabilities that one can have on the autism spectrum. I'd love to ask you, in your experience, from people on the outside, what do you feel they should be doing when they know someone is on that spectrum scale? Do you think that they should be acting any differently and giving special treatments, or do you feel like that they should be treating people like everyone else? How do you find that balance for people that aren't on the spectrum to be able to handle people on the spectrum?
Well, this goes towards understanding what is the source of the behavior that causes neurotypicals to react with intentional harsh discomfort. And neurotypicals see social rules from their perspective. They don't know that people with autism and Asperger's, they don't see those rules the same way neurotypicals do. Now, that doesn't mean that they aren't important, but a lot of neurotypicals, you know, have their own theory of mind. Like, if I were the other person, if I said this, I know the person would feel X, Y, and Z emotional thought. Surprise, happy, sad, um, concern, disgust, annoyed, contempt. They understand those base emotions, and they see things it's logical to them, you know, why someone feels uncomfortable and why it's their nature to feel uncomfortable about hidden rules. But they don't know why they aren't hidden to they are hidden to us.
Mm. I'd love to just clarify with you on one point. Like, I think some people wonder, like, is this a problem to be solved, or is this simply something that there should be some more tolerance and attempt for understanding? I think a lot of people, this comes up more often with autism than Asperger's. But do you think that this is something that we should try to cure, or do you think that this is something that we should be looking towards embracing?
Embracing the latter, because autism and Asperger's behavior, we're not intentionally wanting to be rude,
Mm,
and we're not it's not bad behavior. It's it's different social mind behavior. We just think differently about what the rules are, and we don't see rules from a hidden curriculum perspective. It's not that we want to be bad about these hidden curriculum things. We just don't see those rules, and it's not our intentional fault.
I wholeheartedly agree with you there. I think this is the perfect moment for us to take our break, where we come back, where we'll be discussing how this actually can be addressed and improved further, as well as some of the other parts we were talking about beforehand. We want to get to talking about how we can address mental health and as well as other neurodevelopmental, mental disabilities. So, Sreenath, thank you so much. We're going to be coming back in our second part. Hope everyone will come and join us then. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of The Hill of Roses. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you did, please let us know by subscribing to our channel, liking today's video, and sharing the video with your friends. Also, if you want to be notified, please make sure you hit the bell when you subscribe. Finally, if you want to find more of our network's content, please go to thehillofroses.com. With that being said, we love y'all for helping the movement grow, and we hope you're staying rosy out there.